Now, I'm not one to gossip, but I will bring you the tea. Welcome to Chronicle Speaks.
So today is the sentencing day for Diddy. We do not know if the sentencing will be concluded today or if it will be concluded on Monday. However, everyone is in the courtroom waiting. Let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, it's about 10 minutes till. Diddy has not been brought out. A U.S. Marshal comes out with a big sheet of papers and a red book. He picks up the chair to search underneath. All clear. So Diddy's attorneys Mark Agnifilo and Brian Steele are talking low next to the lectern. Alexandra Shapiro stands with Nicole Westmoreland, and the prosecutors are seated at the front table. -1, Ms. Maureen Comey. Okay, so at 10:05, the judge's clerk says, "Are we ready to proceed?" Was that Mr. Donaldson who just went back into the holding cell? Yes. Now we're waiting on Mr. Combs to be brought out. At 10:10, Sean Combs is brought out. He has on a cream sweater with a white button down underneath and black pants. He gave hugs to and shook hands with his legal team and took a look at a folder at his seat. When he sat down, he finally gave his family a look and blew a kiss to his mother. Attorney Brian Steele is standing next to him and begins whispering in his ear. At 10:17, all rise. The clerk says this is U.S. versus Sean Combs. Judge Subramanian says, "Do we have the signed order of forfeiture?" Prosecutor Slavic says, "Yes, I am handing it up." Judge says, "First, I'll go over what I have received and the pre-sentencing reports. I'll hear from the parties." Judge says, "I received the defense's reply memo of October 2nd and the letter from Mr. Combs and the video the defense plans to play here in court, which I shown on a previous video. I appreciate the letters. I received the government's letters from Ms. Ventura and others. I appreciate them." Alexandra Shapiro from Diddy's team says, "We're going to submit a course evaluation from the Metropolitan Detention Center." Prosecutor Slavic says, "We don't have a copy." Judge says, "Please give her one." Slavic says, "Mia no longer wishes to address the court here today, in part due to the letter submitted by the defense bullying."
Well, shit.
Slavic says, "We think the defense's letter violated your honor's rules." Judge says, "I thought the tone was inappropriate and it should not happen again. Anyone beyond Mr. Combs?" Steele from Diddy's team says the Reverend and Mr. Combs' children will come up and stand together. Also, Giovanni from the program. Judge says, "Ms. Slavic?" Slavic says, "Rule 32 only applies to the parties and victims. The court is within its right to exclude character witnesses. Judge Furman has used this before to limit defense witnesses." Judge says, "But I can allow them, correct, as I overruled the defense wanting to exclude Mia?" Slavic says, "Within your discretion." "Yes, Judge." Judge says, "Mr. Steele, okay for the children and Dr. Johnson." Steele says, "Reverend Doctor?" Judge says, "I'll think about the others." Now, as for the objections, the defense says acquitted conduct cannot be considered. There is no guidance from any court on this. We don't know what the jury was thinking, but it's about overlapping conduct, and it only impacts the advisory guideline range. Judge continues, acquitted conduct can be considered. See U.S. versus Bond, Second Circuit, and other cases. Even matters that cannot be considered for the guidelines can be considered under 3553A. Now the U.S. objections. They argue for the criminal sexual abuse guideline. Judge continues, there is little precedent on what type of threat is required, but bodily harm makes most sense. Concrete harm? To force Jane and Miss Ventura to engage in sex acts. Does this conduct establish the convicted conduct? There was the flight from Cannes. Did that meet the requirement of bodily harm threat? There was evidence of that in the case with respect to the hotel nights and freak-offs. But in light of the constitutional questions raised, the court declines to apply the cross-reference. But 3553A, since I can consider it under 3553A, it does not impact the sentence. Next, Mr. Combs' marking of pad as legal, that was troubling, but the intention is not clear. The government could have pushed to clarify it, so I will not imply the enhancement. The government objects to probation not considering Jane and Miss Ventura as vulnerable witnesses. I overruled this. What made Combs' coercion effective was their condition. Anyway, the court could reach the same conclusion. Now Mr. Combs' objections. Mr. Combs objects to characterizing Miss Ventura and Jane as victims. That is overruled. Mr. Combs also objects to the escorts being characterized categorized as victims. That is also overruled. They were transported for the purpose of engaging in commercial sex. Then there was Jules and Paul and Cabral, Jules, Reggie, and Rico. As to coercion, when something is voluntary, it is uncompelled. That is from Black Law Dictionary. It's a broad concept. The threat to release videos into Jane's home, that's coercion. Mr. Combs said he was paying for time, not sex. That is contradicted by reality. He has not expressed remorse for transporting people for prostitution. Combs has challenged his guilty full-throttedly, including after trial. Mr. Combs wants to apply the 0-point offender provision from 2023, but 2024 on other issues. That is not possible under Second Circuit's one-book rule. Next, Mr. Combs objects to the $5,000 assessment under the statute because there are no victims. Denied. I have the forfeiture order. Is this your signature, Mr. Combs? Yes, sir. Mr. Steele, did you review it? Tina Garrigo says, I did. Judge says, I incorporate the order into the judgment in this case. Judge says all remaining objections are overruled. Garrigo says, although you say some points don't impact your sentence, it might impact his eligibility for low characterization if you impose an incarceratory sentence. Judge says we can address that. Garrigo says, if necessary. Alexandra Shapiro said, I'd like to make some more points. We briefed extensively. Judge says 380 pages. Shapiro says, we raised due process, the fairness concerns set forth by Justice Sotomayor. We believe militate for our interpretation and preclude the court under 3553. I wanted to preserve this for appeal. Should there be an appeal of your sentence? Judge says it is preserved. The PSR says the offense level is 27. I agree with that. The criminal history category is 1. That leads to a guideline of 70 to 87 months. I'll hear from the government. Slavic says, I'd like to respond for the defense as well. Today is about accountability and justice. For 15 years, the victims' lives have been shattered by abuse and exploitation. This case is not just about freak-offs in hotel rooms. This is about victims, about a man who did horrible things to other people. His currency was control. He weaponized it. All of the 3553 factor point to at least 135 months. The defense accuses us of seeking 135 months so that the court splits the difference. We think probation's recommendation of 60 months does not account sufficiently for the harm to Cassie and Jane. The defendant tries to argue that this is just sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle, but this is a case about transportation for prostitutes and violence. The defendant admitted to violence at trial. The defendant's respect for the law is lip service. Mr. Combs has booked speaking engagements for Miami for next week. This is the height of hubris. He did this for 15 years. He was responsible for transporting many escorts. There's a lot of freak-offs and a lot of hotel nights. He knew it was illegal. Even in cases that decline to apply the cross-reference, significant sentences are handed down, including in this district. Consider U.S. versus Dylan Jordan. The judge says in Jordan, the defendant had been convicted and imprisoned in Cuba in the years prior. Am I correct? And that's why Judge Cronin varied upward. Slavic says that is correct, as well as the other factors. Judge says so there is a distinguishing feature. Slavic says there's also a case by Judge Kimber Wood. Mann Act cases with fear, violence, and threats routinely get significant sentences. This is not a simple transportation case, but it has major aggravators. As to Cassie, he hit her and stomped on her. The video from the LA hotel has played many times at trial, and it never got easier. As to Jane, he punched her, he slapped her a little over a year ago when he knew he was under federal investigation. At trial, they said they owned the violence. Admitting to violence in front of the jury as part of a trial strategy is not accountability. Freak-offs were extended performances of sexual degradation and humiliation. Cassie and Jane did not want to have sex with strangers. He made them do it. He had an escort urinate in Cassie's mouth until she choked. Her victim impact statement makes clear she still has nightmares and flashbacks and the scars on her body. Jane's texts make clear her anguish and trauma. Mia said she got PTSD and anxiety. Deontay Nash said he has caused lasting damage. Capricorn Clark says he blackmailed her once she spoke up. Chef Jordan Atkinson wrote how she was impacted. It was real and serious. He downplays the abuse, calling it rare, But it was not rare. Cassie's testimony was that he was violent with her at any time. It was not mutual. You saw no photos of the defendant with injuries. He blames doctors for prescriptions. He pretends he is the victim. He hasn't accepted responsibility for his criminal conduct. The information provided to his expert was incomplete. He will pose a danger at any age. He choked Jane at 54 years old. Prostitution causes other problems. It happens out of the public's view. General deterrence is needed. Send a message to all victims and to the public that this defendant's crimes are serious. You could encourage or discourage abusers. At least 135 months are necessary. Judge says, let's take a break. Okay, it's 11:51. Break is over and we are back. It's Combs' lawyer Driscoll's turn. Driscoll says, I'm grateful, Your Honor, to you being so permissive with the microphone for us today. I'm going to talk about sentencing disparities. A blind reliance on the guidelines can create disparities. The DOJ has long said that Mann Act prosecution should focus on the commercial cases. Sean Combs did not make a penny from this. The Jordan case is not comparable. He served 8 years in Cuba for sex crimes. That was his second chance. Jordan made $1.4 million. Do you know how many sex acts that is? He had over 100 clients. Mr. Combs' offense is nothing like that. 3 of Jordan's victims reported unwanted sex. One was RAPED'd after being drugged. There is another case with 7 victims. No grouping enhancement applied. Defendant got 18 months, was released after 9 months. Then there's 18 CR 20376 from the SDFL. They generated $1.8 million and they got 15 months. In John cases, the average sentence is 6.7 months. In this other case, the defendant texts the victim, I meant what I said about making a mold of your PUSSY. The rest of you ain't worth shit. Judge says, but there was no threat of violence in that case. Driscoll says, Ms. Slavic just blamed Mr. Combs for having a drug problem for 25 years. We think that was inappropriate. It is a mitigating factor. Let's talk about 13-CR-294, District of Oregon. The defendant paid for a session with a young girl. See docket 85. That defendant, Riggs, got 24 months. It was more heinous than this case. 3553A6 says to avoid unwarranted sentencing disparities. I've read all 900 Mann Act cases available on Pacer. His case is different. Judge says, who's next? Miss Westmoreland? Damn. Now, Miss Westmoreland is typically a beast in the courtroom. Let's see what she has to say. She says, I want to focus on the inspiration Mr. Combs has given throughout his life and on the commitment he made while in the MDC. Mr. Combs was successful, but he used it to help others. He touched many more lives than I can cover in these next minutes. There were not many Black-owned labels. Mr. Combs had the audacity. It sent a message that you can do it. Clothing too. It was not just urban streetwear. It was upscale. It brought unity. It inspired change. In spirits, our community finally had a seat at the table. A voice. A real voice. Then there was revolt. Sobs. Damn, y'all. So sis is really in there crying. He's really trying to help. He opened up 3 charter schools in neighborhoods where the schools were not good. The motto was Black excellence, the youth of our future. Mr. Combs personally inspired me. I went to an event in DC. Mr. Combs was there. He said, listen, everyone. She cries again. I'm sorry. He said, don't be afraid to dream. Just remember to wake up and put actions behind your dreams. And then he said, don't forget to help others. That changed my life. Girl. Diddy might as well put those handcuffs back on himself and walk right back to that cell and finish chow with the rest of the inmates, because at this point, it's not looking good. She continues, Mr. Combs is just a man and he's made some mistakes. He has flaws like we all do. But how many of us can say that we've helped so many lives? Countless lives. He's been in jail and he's remorseful. I spend every day speaking with him. In the MDC, Mr. Combs started asking people their dreams. That's how free game for Diddy was born. No one's done this in the MDC ever before. There is no benefit to warehousing Mr. Combs in prison. Thank you. Judge says, Mr. Steele says, we wanted his children to come up, then show the video. Judge says, please come forward. My name is Quincy Brown. He is my father. We're going to love him unconditionally through his struggles, but in front of you and in front of us, he is a changed man. Our father has learned a major lesson. Week after week, we've seen him evolve, something we haven't seen in 15 years. He's completely transformed. Our Father will never do anything to jeopardize his freedom, and as his children, we want to thank you. We only wish that we can heal together. My name is Justin Combs. I ask you give my father a second chance. My father is my superhero. My father always told me to believe in God. Oh, Lord. I talk to my father every day, every other hour. I can truly, sincerely say he's changed for the better. Your Honor, I believe my father still has so much more to give to the world, and more importantly, so much more to give to his children. Judge says next, I am Christian Combs. I am the one who most resembles my pops. My mannerism, my whole life I studied my dad up and down. He is the greatest man in the world, my superhero. He begins to cry. He says he's traveled across the country every week just to see his father for 2 hours. He's seen a change in his father during those times. He's more patient, he's more relaxed, he's more trusting, he's more understanding, and just a better man. He told me to treat women like a queen, and I do. I see in his eyes, as his twin, he has changed. My name is Jesse Combs, and I am 18 years old. Your Honor, we know he isn't perfect, and he's made many mistakes, and we aren't here to excuse any of those mistakes. But Your Honor, he's still our dad, and we still need him present in our lives. When my mother died, I was just a little girl trying to understand a loss way too big for words. I remember my dad sitting us down that day, holding us close, even though his own heart was breaking, and promising that he would always be there to keep us safe, that he would always walk beside us in life. It was that thing that helped me survive the hardest nights, the birthdays, and very important milestones we had to experience without her. Hello, Your Honor. My name is Chance Combs, and my father is more patient, more thoughtful, and more open about his mistakes. We're still just daughters who need our fathers. She then goes on to say he's working to become a better man, present father, and I could feel a difference in the way he listens and responds. She says she sees the difference the most in the way he parents his 2-year-old daughter, Love. Watching him nurture her, even from a distance, has been unexpectedly healing. I can see glimpses of the father he was to us as babies, but it always breaks my heart because my sister deserves so much more than this. Then Delilah Combs takes to the stand and she says, Your Honor, and she begins to cry. Please let us move forward, and not as a headline, but as a family. The judge says, thank you all. This is important for me to hear. Still says, we would like to show you the movie. So the film that I played in my previous video that Diddy uploaded last night is now playing for the court. Then they go to break. We'll be back with more. Okay, and so now they're back. The judge says, Mr. Steele. Mr. Steele says, I am honored to practice in this majestic courthouse. I sit here with tears in my eyes. I can't believe we're here. Sean has impacted America in such a positive manner. Diddy done pinched all of them and said, cry, bitch. Now, we already know the jury has spoken. He's been convicted of 2 counts of the Mann Act. Sean's father was unalived when he was 3, and Sean has no memory of his father. I can't imagine. A few days later, his uncle, his mother's brother, overdosed on drugs, a drug addiction that later in his life would haunt also Sean. He was raised in Harlem in the 1970s. It was different. His mother had 3 jobs, moved them to Mount Vernon. Sean's family was one of the only African Americans in the area, and for the first time, Sean encountered racism. So Sean first got his start in the industry by taking an unpaid internship at a record label. His ear is better than everyone else's, and he can tell what a good album is, what's going to be number 1, and how people should change how they're singing or the way the beat's constructed. Eventually, Combs' name was known throughout the music industry. But then more trauma strikes. His best friend is shot in LA in a drive-by shooting. So here it is. Sean is upset. He's trying his best to break down these barriers. He has this operation and he gets addicted to painkillers. Now, he's been high off of them until 2024. You heard it at trial. He's medicated because his body was hurt. His emotions too. I have been with Sean when he prayed not only for forgiveness, but for healing for anyone that he's harmed or injured. Sean wants nothing for himself. This sentence today is not about him. He wants to get back to his family, for them. On occasion, Mr. Combs would hit a woman that he loved. He loved Miss Ventura. I've been with Sean more than my family since I met him. He has taken responsibility. He would have pled guilty to the Mann Act, but they wouldn't offer that. It is now 12 months and 17 days in MDC. There are certain people who gain prestige if they hurt him. Sean was nearly shanked by another inmate while in custody until a guard narrowly stopped the attack. Sean is not a typical person in custody. Everyone knows him. It's a trophy for them. They get recognized if they harm him. He hasn't slept for more than 2 hours consecutively since he was arrested. He eats out of bags. He eats chips all day long. He lives with 25 people in one room. There's a TV area there and a supposed bed. There are drugs there. He has not taken drugs. There is violence. The water is polluted. You have to boil it. There are screams day in and day out. Despite the condition at the New York City Metropolitan Detention Center, the worst part of being in custody is the separation from his family. He sometimes would tell me it's not worth going on. There's nothing here. There's no more hope. But his family, he could not again bring suffering on them. That would just be more trauma for them. Sean is a great man. Some of the media have called him a disgrace, an outcast, like a leper. Those people are wrong. I know Sean personally. He's a great man who is being sentenced but still has done things that I can only dream of. He's punished himself more than anyone will ever be able to punish him. It will stay with him for the rest of his days. Loved ones now say that now that he's off of drugs, he is a different person. The drugs affected his thinking. So let's talk about this event that Diddy has scheduled for October 6th. It's not a speaking engagement, but rather a healing for Sean as well as the community. Defense attorney Xavier Donaldson will discuss this further when he addresses the court later today. Earlier today in court, prosecutor Slavic brought up the event, stating that it was scheduled before sentencing was even handed down. She called this the height of hubris. We asked that Sean Combs be able to have a 14-month sentence. He has taken full accountability. He's not using drug addiction as a crutch. He is saying he wants to repair. He will never be a danger. He is a civil rights leader. Not a civil rights leader.
Who had been saying that? Who said that?
Brian still goes on to say, now we can hear from the Reverend. Hallelujah. The Reverend says, I'll be personally responsible for seeing him rehabilitated. I'm close with this. As Michael Jordan said, these sneakers are just sneakers, but when my son puts them on, it becomes something else. Sean needs an opportunity, and I'm here to help him. If you free him, free his body, free his incarceration, and allow him to have probation, we'll help his mind. If you give him the opportunity under us to work for us, he won't be back up in here because he made a mistake. He'll be back up in here to tell you thank you. I'm asking you to give him to us, and he won't let you down. You have been very honorable in this court. Still says we'll now have Mr. Donaldson. Xavier Donaldson says it's been a long day and I think it's been worth it. I want the record to be clear that Mr. Combs is not a pimp. What the hell? Here in the Southern District of New York, we've had U.S. senators prosecuted here, and I dare anyone to say anyone else in the past 30 years did what he did in the MDC. The true Sean Combs came back. I spoke to Chief of Police in Miami. I spoke to superintendents of education in Miami. Everyone said this is something different. The court is in a difficult position. I think, if I may say that respectfully, Judge, you're looking at the victim impact statements written by Cassie Ventura and Jane and other alleged victims, as well as the letters and statements from Sean Combs' loved ones. You find yourself, I think, saying that you have two people here. Who's the real Sean Combs? I'd like to believe that the real Sean Combs is in the grain of all of those letters you read and what you heard from the family. We have a speaker ready to say that these are not speaking arrangements. May is the executive director of Reentry 1. The judge says, what is the gentleman's name? Giovanni. I have a letter from the others. 1 minute is fine. My name is Giovanni Sears for Reentry 1. We serve a couple of hundred people per year. I have read the letters of those impacted by the teaching and mentorship of Mr. Sean Combs. As a formerly incarcerated person myself, I see the impact. When a person creates his own program while incarcerated, it shows something. I know, I've done it. Not even a parking ticket since. I work with probation. I speak at many different functions with the private prison operator that we work with. Judge, we are eager to work with Mr. Combs in the same way. We have established engagements in the communities in need. Lastly, our mission is centered in the idea that those closest to the problem will solve it. The judge says, okay, thank you very much. Up and he says, look, it's getting late, so I'll be brief. I started in the Manhattan DA's office in 1990. We mostly had to put people in jail, but in 1996, the Center for the Court Innovation started. John Jay did a lot of studies. DV tends to come up from childhood traumas. Doctors found that Combs has PTSD. He grew up without a father. His father was unalived when he was a baby. The family didn't tell him how his father was unalived, but he picked it up from the street. He gave a commencement address at Howard in 2014. He found in the microfilm there how his father died in a drug deal gone bad. Maybe that's the trauma. He had major depressive disorder. Okay, I'm going to sit down in 5 minutes. Then Ms. Slavic, then Mr. Combs has the last word. Agnifilo says, I am asking you to release him today. He has been punished publicly. Everyone knows every twist and turn in this case. This is also a form of general deterrence. The publicity that he's got, Ms. Ventura's lawsuit, is destroyed his businesses. We are proposing mental health treatment, a domestic violence program. Sometimes group programs are the best. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'm not asking for a light sentence. I'm asking for mental health, the root of the problem. I'll stop here and turn it over to the government. I think it's only fair that Mr. Combs has the last word. Ms. Slavic, says the judge, going back a few hours ago to Mr. Driscoll. We have cited cases with sentences of 135 months based on abuse. Slavic says, now back to the Dylan Jordan case. Let's zoom out. Why did Judge Cronin take into account the previous sentence? Because Jordan knew it was wrong. He quit the business before he was prosecuted. Here, the defendant continues crimes. Pimps control their victims. That's what happens here. $1.4 million would be 90-some freak-offs. There were more than that here. Mr. Driscoll challenged us to find abusive text like he quoted, but this case has physical abuse on video. The defendant is a master puppeteer. His video has better production values than the Intercontinental Hotel video, but that shows who he is. Right now, he would apologize to his victims. 5 lawyers spoke for him. Mr. Steele said Cassie wanted it. Slavic continues, we asked for a significant sentence here. Judge says, thank you. Mr. Combs still says, can we take a comfort break? Judge says, okay, be back at 4 o'clock. Okay, so 4:06, they are back. Sean Combs stands at the defense table and he said, I want to thank you for giving me the chance to finally be able to speak up for myself. Now, Diddy is wearing glasses and he's looking over papers. He began looking over his papers again and taking an audible exhale. Says one of the hardest things I've had to handle has been having to be quiet and not express how sorry I am for my actions. I don't take that lightly. I would like to apologize to Cassie Ventura and her family. I'm sorry for hurting you emotionally and physically. I apologize to Jane for bringing you into my mess. I would like to apologize to all the victims of domestic violence. I know that the disgusting video triggered people. I was sick from the drugs. I needed help, but I didn't get the help. Because of that, I can make no excuse, and I can't really make no excuse because I knew better. My mama raised me better. I was taught better. My faith taught me better. I got lost in the journey of life. I'm not that larger than life person. I'm just a human being. I've been trying my best. I got lost in excess. I got lost in my ego because of my decisions. I lost my freedom. I lost my opportunity to effectively raise my children and be there for my mother. He then addresses his mother in court and he says, you taught me better. You raised me better. I know to whom much is given, much is required. I failed my community. Growing up as a kid, I just wanted to be a shining example of what we could do. I say we as a people of color, that we can own our own businesses, take care of our own communities, raise our own children, solve our own problems, create our own wealth, take care of our own problems. That's what my mission was, and I got lost. I'm not this bad person. I'm sorry to my community for letting all of y'all down. He then addresses the judge and he says, people can change. I know I've changed. He said, sometimes life events change your trajectory. Sometimes no matter who you were before you get so shaken, it just changes your trajectory. It just changes you and it changes you for the better. Sometimes you have to go through life experiences. These are not excuses. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. I ask your honor for mercy. I beg your honor for mercy. I ask your honor for the chance to be a father again. I ask your honor for the chance to be a son again. I ask your honor for the chance to be a leader in my community again. I ask your honor for a chance to get the help that I desperately need to become a better person because I don't want to let God down. I don't want to let my family down. I don't have nobody to blame but myself. I know I'll never put my hands on another person again. I know that I've learned my lesson. I'm willing to comply with any condition the court puts upon me. Given a chance, When we talk about the possibility of me sharing my story, it's not just a scheme to try to get less time. Is that this story is real. This story is tragic. Then he speaks about the Mann Act charges. He says, I understand the severity of it and I'm having to deal with the consequences. And I take full accountability and responsibility. Now I know the prosecution wants you to make an example of me. I just want you to think about making an example of what a person can do if they are given another chance. If you give me another chance, I won't let you down. And the evidence of that is those beautiful children that got up there and spoke for me. He took a moment to thank his children who spoke on his behalf at today's proceedings. I will never, ever, ever jeopardize being in this situation again, being away from my family that needs me. That's my deterrence. So now it's time for Judge Subramanian to address the court, and he says that he wants to make it clear that Combs is being sentenced for the offenses of the conviction, the Mann Act charges, and not for the sex trafficking and the racketeering charges that he was acquitted of. He says, Mr. Combs, you are being sentenced for acquitted conduct, but under 3553, I must consider many things. Mr. Combs, you are a self-made artist who inspired a community of color. We saw the video, the free game course in the MDC. The court hopes you continue to expand it. You are devoted to your family. The court, of course, considers the collateral consequences. The court has to consider all of your history here. A history of good work can't wash away the record in this case. You abuse these women. You use the abuse to get your way. Freak-offs and hotel nights. The evidence of the abuse is massive. I was sitting right here during the testimony. This was subjugation. That is the reality of what happened. These offenses irreparably harmed two women. You piled them with drugs. Why did it happen so long? You had the power and resources to keep it going. You were more than a John. A significant sentence is required to deter. You say you're sorry and I won't do it again after Ms. Ventura's civil lawsuit was filed, after the video was public, and investigation started. You had a brutal hotel night with Jane, punched her in the head. Jane says he told her, take the pill. Do it there and suck his you-know-what and F him. I don't care. The court is not convinced this would not happen again. The court has considered the programs. They have outweighed by the trial record in this case. Exploitation and violence against women must be met with real accountability. To promote respect for the law, the court reaches a few conclusions. 135 months would be more than necessary. A sentence over 11 years is not reasonable. Even the probation department recommends a sentence less than half of that, but 14 months time served would not be sufficient. Here the data shows a wide variety of sentences, weighing all the relevant factors. The court determines the sentence is 50 months of incarceration. The judge continues, Mr. Ignifilo, any recommendations where to serve the sentence? Ignifilo says, can we get back to you by Monday now that we know there is a sentence? Judge says yes. Judge says the court imposes a fine of $500,000, including to defray the cost of imprisonment. There is no restitution, but there is forfeiture as reflected in the order. There is $5,000 fine under the statute and special assessments of $200. I want to speak to the strong women who came forward. Ms. Ventura and Jane, you've been through trauma we can't imagine. Ms. Ventura said it was forced sex and degradation. I want to say we heard you. You weren't just speaking to the jurors, but to other victims. You stood up to power. It's not easy. Violence behind closed doors doesn't have to stay secret forever. I know you still bear trauma, but you've taught us you don't have to stay a victim. Thank you. Well, that's a wrap. What I need to do is hear from you. What do you think about this Diddy getting 4 years? Leave a comment, and you know how we do. We'll talk about it down below. Talk to you guys later. Bye. Once again, thanks for watching, but before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any of our new episodes.